Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 6th Tiger Talk of the 45th International Film Festival, Rotterdam. We have just seen in its European premiere the film The Land of the Enlightened by the Belgian director Pieter-Jan De Pue. As every evening, I would like to invite the director of the International Film Festival Rotterdam, Bero Beyer, to introduce the film and tell us why this special choice. Please welcome Bero Beyer.
Hi, Ludmila.
Hello, Bero. Thank you for joining us.
It's Tuesday.
It's Tuesday. It's the 6th film. 2 more to go. Very exciting.
Yeah, but
on
it's
Friday.
Tuesday.
On
Land
Friday,
of the
we know.
Enlightened Day.
Please tell us this beautiful film. When did you see it? How did you discover it?
It has a personal touch because the co-producer of the film, Submarine, Femke Wolting, used to be my boss at the festival many years ago.
Okay.
So to do her a favor, I watched the film because I thought I'm not going to get it a world premiere. Mm-hmm. From the very first moment when this story comes about the garden, I was hooked. I was drawn into something which turned out to be one of the most daring, bold, and almost fairy tale-like stories in the most grim setting I could imagine. I think it's beautifully shot. You can really feel the passion and the sheer determination that it should take to make a film like this ooze off the screen. I think people will be blown away by something which is so beautiful and so huge. It seems far away and very from a place that we have all kinds of preconceptions about, but the way he handles a story delicately with the children, I don't know, the word hope still has meaning, even in a place like Afghanistan.
If I may add from my part, I think this is Afghanistan that we have never seen before in its beauty, in its everyday life, with these kids, everything. So thank you very much for inviting this film for competition. It's beautiful.
Totally my pleasure.
Yes.
And a brilliant filmmaker. Brilliant filmmaker.
Brilliant filmmaker. We can say a name that we will for sure hear about in future.
There you go.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you. Tonight we had a chance to see in its European premiere a film, The Land of the Enlightened, by the director Pieter-Jan De Pue. And I would like to welcome the director. We'll have a chance for a half an hour to see the clips and talk to him. Please welcome the director. And in the meantime, I can maybe tell you Pieter-Jan has studied in Brussels, at film school in Brussels. He worked as a freelance director of commercials, but also as a photographer. This is his first feature-length film. It was entirely shot in Afghanistan. Pieter-Jan just came back from Sundance Film Festival, where he received a very prestigious World Cinema Documentary Special Jury Award for the best cinematography. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So your film is a really stunning cinematographic journey through this country tormented by war. I've read that you were there actually originally as a photographer. You went there, but you took your 16mm camera, and you were not only shooting pictures but also some material. And it took like 7 years. I was just wondering, when was the moment that you decided, okay, I have such a beautiful material, I want to make a combination of fiction and documentary film?
No, it's actually it's not completely true.
Okay.
No, but it's no worries. So in 2007, I went the first times to Afghanistan. In 2008, as well, I was mainly working as a photographer for humanitarian organizations. It was only photography. So at that point in 2007, I was not really having the attention to make a film yet. So I did not bring a 60mm camera with me. But I was at that time, like while making those photo reports, I was discovering a lot of stories from Afghan children who were involved in traffic of gemstones, arms, opium, all kind of business which is related to the war. And it took a lot of my attention and it really triggered me, and I decided to make a film about this. So after the first trip in 2007, I returned to Belgium and I start writing a script. I got script money writing actually from the Flemish Audiovisual Fund. And then I start preparing a first draft. And after that, like in 2009, between 2009 and 2008, I discovered I was in touch with Bart van Langendonk, the producer, and then we developed the whole project. We got funds from media, a lot of other foundations, and actually the first start of shooting was only in 2010.
Okay. So I was wondering which part is fictions do this? You have a few gangs of young boys between 10, 14. Nasir is your main character. Did you make up these gangs yourself, or do they actually exist there in Afghanistan?
There are, as you see in the film, there are like 4 groups of children.
Yes.
And of course, the group of Ghulam Nasir is maybe the biggest storyline in the film. But again, as I said during the screening, I think first of all we had the war with the Americans, which is like a complete documentary context that we wanted to create, where we wanted to show how the war was happening, how it looks like. And then we had like all those elements like kids working the mine, kids working the minefield.
Yeah, we will have some clips we can talk about it.
Okay. And so while I was discovering those kids, there were some reasons why partly we staged them, and some of them are completely true. For example, the kids in the minefield was kind of difficult, or I think not responsible, to bring my film crew in an active minefield, so we decided to take a part of the minefield, which was demined, and we were working with mines which were unarmed, like not lethal anymore. But we asked actually the kids who were digging up mines on a daily basis, we asked them to do their job like they were doing day in, day out, but of course in a safer part of the minefield. With Ghulam Nasir, it was a different story because he was for me like a kind of a symbol where...
So where did you find him? Like on your trips, but by coincidence?
Yeah, we did like a kind of a casting of a lot of kids in 3 villages in the mountains. Okay. And I was looking for a leader, like a strong personality, where I wanted to hang on my little stories of dreams of children in Afghanistan. And he was kind of, the interpreter or the actor who had to tell, like with a main voice, the storyline of lots of Afghan kids. So that's why some parts in the film are really staged, and I think he's like symbolizing all this. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I just want to tell a bit about the casting because you were asking me. So, actually, it was kind of obvious that he was gonna become the main character because his father was already a Khan, like a chief of 3 different villages, and so he was destined in any case to become like to follow up his father. So, he had already this strong leadership himself, and we did like a few exercises with him, and I was like. After half an hour, it became really clear it's going to be him.
Fantastic. So you were lucky with that also.
Yeah, but
we mostly see male characters in the film, but what struck me and it was beautiful that you did include some female characters, the little girls. There is even a sort of love story of Nasir for this little girl. Maybe we can have a clip number 1 to have a look at this.
Juista norossimilta ja tautkatyyntä. Ja uzra.
من میفهمم که عشق خود نشان داده نمیتونم. در پیش اونام دیگه یک مرد نخود بودم. فقط یک آدم تنهای ضعیف. یک روز من یک کس دیگه خود بودم. لیکن فعلا دیگه راهی ندارم.
I was wondering, you told us about where you found your boys characters. Was it allowed actually for this girl is actually a child? Was it difficult to, or whom did you have to convince that she could play the role?
Yeah, and the film was, you have to know, like the area where we were shooting the film was a kind of a mixed religious area. So you had, they're all Muslim, but some parts of that area were Shia and some parts were Sunni. And this girl was belonging to an ethnic Kyrgyz tribe, which was Sunni, and Ghulam Nasir is Wahi, which is more related to Shia. But it was very difficult to bring girls from the area where they were living to the shooting area, so we had to work with those Kyrgyz girls.
Okay.
And actually, we had to convince her, yeah, definitely to do that scene, but we never told the parents what we were going to do, because if we were going to tell it, maybe it was going to create like lots of problems, because Shia can't marry with Sunni. So what we did, we decided to kill a sheep and to make like a huge barbecue for all the people of the village, and we put them on the side away for like a couple of hours, and then we could just film with the girl. And we said that we're gonna film like that she's just baking bread and something like this. So yeah, otherwise it was just not possible to do.
Yes, okay, thank you. At the beginning of the film, and actually throughout the film, you have this voiceover, but at the beginning, the voiceover, is it Nasir's voice in one?
It's intended to be his voice, but
his consciousness, stream of consciousness.
Yeah, sure. But I went back to Afghanistan to record his real voice, but because he's like someone from the mountains, and as you see, we did the shooting on a very natural way with him, so I just told him like things like, okay, do that or do that, but I give him a lot of freedom. Yes. So we shot like that was, you know, the way how I wanted to capture also the kids. But from the moment that I came to him and I said, okay, read this text, and I want you to have this emotion and this feeling and this and that, then it became really complicated, and he started like mixing up a lot of things. So the voiceover was really bad. Okay. It was boring, and it was like, yeah, not good actually. So I went back to Belgium, and the producer said, yeah, we don't want to use it. We have to look for another kid who is like, you know, the voice of Ghulam Nasir. In the beginning it was kind of hard, but then I accepted it because I think that nobody will really understand that he's talking another language. I mean, the kid in the voiceover is talking Farsi, and he's like talking Wahi, which is total different language. But then everybody said, yeah, forget it, you know, I mean, everybody will understand, it's his voice. So I accepted, and we did another recording in the studio in Belgium with an Afghan little boy, which was the same age of Ghulam Nasir.
So what does there is a very specific text. Where does this text come from? Because it's talking about the King Nasrullah. Who is given Afghanistan by God because he was forgotten, but it's a God's garden. It's a beautiful text, very poetical. Where does it come from?
It's actually a story which exists in Afghanistan, especially in the area where those boys are coming from. And people there, they believe that Afghanistan has been shaped in this way, that, I mean, the existence of Afghanistan is that God had a garden and that he gave it away to the Afghans. And that because the garden was so beautiful, everybody around in the world was getting so jealous that they wanted to take Afghanistan, and that's the reason why Afghanistan is still in war. So a lot of people are telling this. But then, of course, we needed to have like an annex, like how did this war started? And then the other legend of Genghis Khan, which was like conquering Afghanistan, which is an existing story. We stick together with this parable, and that's like that became the intro of the film.
So
it's like two little legends that we merged together.
Okay, nice. Maybe we can have a look at the second clip where we would like to show actually all these cliches of that we know in Western about Afghanistan, like drugs, opium, children working, poverty, and everything. We more or less see. What struck me was that these kids are actually young adults living adult life. Let's have a look, and maybe let's discuss after.
Tuż Marek Cit pilona, co szłydy, co sznęły.
Hayna uzal wundamat. Ti übştir biri uz taran mı turas rıdıyorma?
كأنك توم كوشيش تارك جالتر قادر شمك.
Nay sarayna uz
أجل
barasın.
مار بغات تاليت. وقت كورن وسط وقت غريبي وسط جال سبوتن بديار كورن سبوتن.
Hayna ti gap خلاص bitu.
با.
Bak. Nada ila diganay. Jab şuru. İla maran deraye. İla rantse mzatsa.
Въпросно, които татък за нас. Сърмано си царта на цар, кой бъдеще?
So maybe you can discuss how much is actually fiction in all this adult action that we can see throughout the film, and how much is true of true life.
You mean in this part?
Well, throughout the whole, we see kids like bargaining with opium. We see kids cutting the poppy seeds for opium again. We see kids in lapis lazuli mine. We see kids what we mentioned also about mines, and so it's a harsh, actually, adult world that they live in. I was wondering, and I was hoping for those kids that there is a lot of fiction, but probably not.
No, as I said before, I think everything that we showed in film is reality in Afghanistan. So even lots of dreams and actions that Ghulam Nasir is doing, what you see in the film, which are staged, is not rare or is not like something rare to Afghanistan. I mean, this is reality. Kids are harvesting opium, kids are putting opium together, loading camels, taking weapons, playing with hand grenades, digging up mines. This is reality, 100%. So, I mean, this was always been my intention to stay very close to what's happening in Afghanistan. But of course I wanted to shoot in a very aesthetical, cinematographical, visual way, which actually didn't allow me to capture everything with a hidden camera in a very realistic way. So we had to, to work in a very cinematographic frame. You have one shot, you have a two shot at the other side. Okay, of course. Again, I wanted to give much as possible freedom to the kids, so I tried to capture like little details out of it and do them much as possible their own thing. But I mean, yeah. The aesthetical aspect was very important to me, and that's why it became really like kind of fiction. But I don't want to call it, again, I don't want to call it fiction. It's like, for me, it's more a hybrid way of working.
It is hybrid,
And again, besides the difficult security conditions in Afghanistan, which was also a reason why we were not allowed to do things in reality. I think that was the kind of film I wanted to look for, to show also a beauty, a kind of beauty which I was surrounded by. I mean, Afghanistan is just such a dramatic, impressive country, and I wanted to have this aspect as well in my film.
Yes, I think you fully succeeded, and it's it's stunning film for its beauty.
Thank you.
So was it? You said some security issues. Did you have to have some special agreement from the government or something? Was it dangerous or not to shoot them? For you and for the kids, of course.
No, for the kids it was a different situation, but we went through a long process of 7 years. So the first 2-3 years was only looking for locations, looking for the characters. So I was alone, only with Afghans.
Okay.
And we had some permissions to travel around in the country, but it was kind of complicated because we did not have the full support from the Ministry of Culture because we were not shooting yet. So we got a lot of, difficulties with governors, with police commanders, that we were suspicious, that we belonged to Taliban, that we were looking for treasures from the Silk Road, and all this kind of difficult things. And so that way of working decided me to do the shooting surrounded with like skilled production managers who were taking off like all this bureaucratic and paperwork stuff from me, and that I only could focus on the kids and on my story. But that seemed to be a wrong approach because I gave away too much responsibility to Afghans and to people who were not actually very familiar with the region where we wanted to film. So we took a lot of risks without knowing it, and we lost like lots of money because money got disappeared. I did not have control about all this stuff anymore. And then at some point, we brought in a lot of European crew, too much equipment, and we were too visible, too slowly, and everybody knew what we were going to do. And at some point we got attacked. Taliban knew that we were doing some film shoots, and they put an ambush, and it ended up very bad. A lot of equipment got destroyed. Luckily, people only got wounded and not dead, not killed. But we had to be evacuated from Afghanistan, and we had to rethink the whole process of film. So I had to rewrite the story, and then after a year, I came back to Afghanistan, and I had to come to the conclusion that actually making this film was only possible to do it in the very first, in a reportage style, the very first approach that we did, like with a small crew, with the permissions that we needed, but very flexible with different plans. Like A plan is not working, okay, we go to B plan, C plan, D plan, and we have like many options. And we change constantly plan. We are one car with very small equipment, and we change constantly crew that nobody knows, okay, this is the crew of the foreigner who is going to film. And we change constantly location. And but the only condition was that I should stay a long time, and that because it needed a lot of organization. But in 2014 we did it, and I think at that point we shot like 80% of the film, so it seemed to work out. And but first we had to be attacked to come to that conclusion. So security-wise, it was kind of a challenge, sure.
What was beautiful also that you won the trust of these boys. You can see that they totally trust you when you are directing them. How did you talk to them? Do you speak Farsi or so? Really?
Yeah, I think it was, if I wanted to make a film about children and with children, I think I had to learn their language, because I needed to communicate with them in a very direct way, and I didn't know what to have like translators and people around me, because then you will lose, the magic relationship between you and them. So of course, the first years it was very hard for me to learn the language and also the culture, because it's so different than from our culture. So it took a while to get really embedded in everything which was Afghanistan. But then, at some point, you visit them, revisit them, you talk with the people, you drink tea, you explain to the village elders what you want to do, and you need time. Time is just like, you can't do something fast in Afghanistan. You have to sit down and explain, and not 1 day, but 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, and you can shoot like 1 day. And then you do something different, and you talk and talk and talk, And by being there physically, you earn trust, and that was the only way it worked out. And I think it's also one of the reasons why making this film was taking so long.
خشکی آیسته آیسته بره به یک نرمی و خوبی درسته بخیر
I have still many questions. Maybe I can try to ask two last ones. There is a beautiful scene. Maybe we can have a clip 3 or 4, is it? You said to us that everything what was concerning the US military troops, it was documentary. And then we also see a cemetery of tanks, which are Russian tanks. When I saw this scene, I realized it's not so far away that in time that Russians were actually there. How strong is this presence still there? Because through the tanks you can see it is still very present.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the Russians were there like 10 years in Afghanistan, and they had they had their Vietnam in Afghanistan. The Russians lost like many soldiers, I think 15,000 or something, and a huge amount of Russian soldiers had been there, like I think over the 10 years more than 1 million. So lots of equipment after the war has been left. First of all, it was being given to the Afghan army, but also just left and they just went with their jeeps and with their trucks back. But all the tanks and all the artillery and the heavy weapons, they did not need it anymore, so it was all spread all over the country. And also parts of, huge minefields and air bases and everything. So it's really very interesting. When you come now in Afghanistan, you can even see like the presence of the Brits from 1840. You can see the presence of the Russians, what they left behind, and now you can see everything what the Americans and NATO troops left behind. So you can discover like different wars just in the landscape. So it's, but of course, as you see, like all the boys, they are wearing Russian uniforms.
Even the boy, he's giving the little girl, it's a Russian medal.
Yeah, the whole Russian presence, even it took like 10 years they brought in so much equipment and so much of the Soviet system that it became a part of Afghani life. Like in daily life, you can discover pots and pans and clothes, and even like houses are sometimes constructed with parts of metal coming from tanks or from weapon systems. Like I saw many times like pipelines, and it was like just the barrel of a tank, a cannon. Like,
Wow.
and yeah, this war got so much embedded in daily life that and nobody's paying attention to it anymore.
Thank you. And maybe the last question, because I'm given a signal. Tell us, please, the boys and girls, are they going to, or all the Afghans that are taking part in the film, will they be able to see the film, or have they seen the film?
Yeah, sure. I mean, again, it's going to be a productional question, but we have really the intention to go back to the mountains of Pamir and show the boys the film. What, you know, the final result, with maybe a mobile cinema with the screen and open air, and do like a screening for the 3 villages who collaborated with us to make the storyline of Ghulam Nasir. I think the story of the boys in a minefield, the tank cemetery, and in Kabul, it will be much more difficult because the situation now is really bad in Afghanistan. Yeah, so, but definitely, yeah, we have, I mean, it's one of my dreams to show them the film. And I think they deserve it. I mean, they were so committed, and everybody to make this film, that it's my responsibility, I think, as a film director, to show how the film looks like.
We would love to be there to see this happening. It must be, I mean, I think it will be a fantastic event for them to see themselves, because many of them, even you said, they don't even have a television, they don't see what a film is, they don't know what a film is. I would like to thank you very much, Pieter-Jan, for this beautiful discussion, for a wonderful film in the first place, for wonderful cinematography. I would like to wish you a good luck for a competition, because you are in a competition. We will hear the results on Friday. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.